It is me, Kev. Yes, not Mike, not Josh. First time ever hosting, and it's me and Steve. Steve, thank you for being here.
Wait, really? This
Yeah,
is your
yeah. This is first time
wow.
hosting. Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I, I guess I can't remember a time that I thought it happened, but I would have just thought over what 5.5, 6 years now, whatever it is. Like there
I
was a
know.
chance that you had to do it at some point.
No, I'm that lazy and skirt responsibility that much where I always get around it. No, it's
I
like
was
one of
going to
those.
take it the other way, that the other two are just such overachievers that they never lent you. Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it that. Let's go with that. That makes me sound better, right? Yeah, no, it's like one of those episodes where, like, Kimmel or Fallon is out doing something and they get some random host to come in and like,
Yeah.
do a show, and people tune in to see if it's like a car wreck or actually pretty good. Like, I feel like that's what we're gonna
Was that
have.
Mike's poll today? You think I'm going to be a car wreck or any good?
Yeah, they'll tune in at 7:30 to see. But Steve, you and I were commiserating before the show started about like, do we really want to talk about soccer? I think
Yeah.
all the soccer stories in our lives right now aren't doing well.
Right. Because you're a Liverpool fan.
Yeah,
Do you follow Nashville at all, or do you not
no,
care? No. Do you care
no,
about MLS at all? I don't think you do,
no,
right? Yeah. Okay.
no.
Well, like DC got me into watching soccer. Like it was my first professional game back when I lived in the Harrisburg area. Went with my buddy and his family. It was great, like in the mid '90s, right, or mid '80s, mid aughts. That's the one I'm looking for. Yeah, yeah. 2007, 2008 era. Game against the Red Bulls at RFK. Like, great memories. It's not good memories anymore. I was ready to walk away and just be like, this was a part of my past. I got the flag hanging up on the back of the door. I've got the old hat downstairs, and it's who I am today. It's part of that journey. And then they hired Rooney, and I'm glad Justin's not here. Because that would not be good. Having to listen about how good Philly is and how bad DC is. We won't talk about the score of the game, but hey, we were one better than we were last time we played them. And I'm a Chelsea fan, so if anybody was paying attention, we know how well that went this weekend.
Yeah, it's bad news all around. Just not a good week.
And I don't feel good about the results for the Hounds. I think there are some things that were like really nice to watch, highlight level stuff, but I think on the whole, I'm just like, I don't feel good right now.
What a perfect transition. You should be the host. Let's get into it. I guess before
just trying to make you look good, Kevin.
Thank you. I need all the help I can get. Before we get into talking about the Red Bulls game where the Hounds drew with the Red Bulls 2-2, let's pull up. Mike put up or I presume it was Mike put up a Twitter poll before the game saying, well, no, that's not the one. Let's try this one. There it is. So, before the game, he put up like, a poll of how do you think it'll go? Hounds win by 2 or more, Hounds win by 1, draw, or a Hounds loss. No one predicted a Hounds loss. 4% of the people said draw, and then 76% said Hounds win by 2 or more. That was right for part of the game. The Hounds are up for 2-0 for part of the game, and then it all kind of went to crap. Steve, what was your overall kind of? Let's start big, and then we'll drill down on minor details.
Big picture, I just feel like we don't have a midfield. I feel like we have defenders and we have attackers, and there is one or two guys ever like kind of in between. And I think I've felt that way for a long time. When we were in the really bad stretch of results, a lot of that was pressure on one or two midfielders. That's where the mistakes were coming from, or we weren't able to press in the midfield and win balls back. And this game, even with some of the good plays, I think I saw that a lot as well. And so I'm real concerned about, I don't think it's a personnel issue, but maybe it is in terms of a glut of true attacking players, and then a need to reinforce the defense. And so that's kind of like pushing more people on the field up into attack when we're playing with 3-4 guys kind of playing as attackers, right? Like as forwards and wingers. And then we're at 3 at the back. We've got 2 wing backs as well. So it's keeping the midfield pretty thin because I think I don't know. I think where I felt the team has looked the best in the midfield and defense is when we've played 4 at the back and had a more strong midfield. And again, this was a game where we didn't do that. Now, let's also be like brutally honest that there was a lot of rotation. So, yeah, players have to execute. Players have to do well. I think Bob talked a little bit about that from what I read a couple places in his post game. I wasn't there this weekend. But, I mean, it's still on his and the coaching staff's shoulders. And I don't think he was trying to blame the players. I think he was saying, like, the players have to do better, and we've got to figure out how to make them do better, right? Like,
right.
And he said that before throughout the year. So, yeah, I don't know what the answer is.
Do you think that the midfield thing, you might have touched on it there, but do you think it's so much so that it's just we don't, the way the Hounds played this game or maybe have played in the past, that we just, I don't know, we tend to bypass the midfield where we almost kind of go back to front maybe too quickly and kind of take them out of the game, or like their responsibilities are different. Like, so a note I had in this game, this game more than most from what I remember of recent history, the likes of Williams and, Ordonez loved a big switch diagonal to like Dixon or Biasi, and just kept doing it this game. And I just felt like there was more and more in this game. We weren't necessarily trying to play through the midfield. We were just trying to push it up the sides and kind of get Dixon isolated and do that stuff. I don't know. Do you think it was kind of that, or do you think it's just the midfield itself is just kind of light?
So I think it's a little bit of both. So if you go back and watch the 4-minute whatever highlight video that the USL puts out every week after the game, it doesn't show a lot of the game, but it shows like the key plays or some of the exciting plays. And there was 2 that really stood out of just that, right? So Robbie's goal, which was a fantastic pass by Ordonez, a fantastic collection, slight dribble pass by Dixon. Russ that's when I think he is at his best, when he knows there's somebody there to support and he has to make the decision right away and doesn't have time with the ball at his feet, and he just has to react. And that's what he did. And he saw Robbie comes streaking up, slams it home. Beautiful team goal. But you're right. Like, I mean, that's from a center back all the way up, 50-yard pass, a couple touches. And then the one where Russ was called offside was, again, similar thing. Cross diagonal ball to Biasi, who then releases it for Russ, where he gets called offside. Not sure he was, hard to tell.
No chance. Yeah, no chance.
Like I went back and watched it, and I was like, I'm trying to find the angle. The angles don't give me anything to see that.
Yeah. I don't. To be fair, I don't know if I don't think he. I mean, look, he was through on goal, but I think a Red Bulls player was closing him down, and by the end of it all, they all kind of knew the flag was raised, and everyone kind of cools off for a bit. So I don't know how clear of a chance it would have been, but I think he was definitely on.
Yeah. But again, right? So those big diagonal balls, without working through the midfield, without building play, without holding possession. But I think the counter to that is in games where we've been down by a goal, where we've had the time and space to do that, and we've had to do that, right? Because we're playing against a compact defense. I mean, we didn't see that against Memphis the week before, right? Like, we did a lot of play with our midfield, but like, what did that gain us? So I don't know. So you think with where things are with the midfield?
Yeah. Well, I guess before we get to that, just because I have the power now, I'm going to use this. Harry said, looking forward to the show. Thank you, Harry. I appreciate that. And Josh in the chat mentioned.
Wait, look at him. Charles Brokaw.
Isn't this great? We get to talk about them when they're not here.
I know.
Josh in the chat says not closing out the game was concerning. Yeah, I mean, we've talked about that before, about just kind of having a certain kind of winning mentality of, professionalism and being ruthless and closing out games. And, I think it was just kind of echoing the point I made last week, where it just feels like there are times where, this team can be on for 99% of the game, but all it takes is, I went back and watched the Mertz goal because it was so nice. I think from back to front, I mean, not even from back to front. I think we had a throw-in, and the throw-in went back to Ordonez, and from the throw-in, I think it took about 15 seconds for us to score. I mean, it doesn't, all you need to do is switch off as a team for 15 seconds, and it feels like that's kind of what happened. I mean, a little less so for the Red Bulls' first goal. For the second goal, yeah, I mean, I'm jumping around a little bit too much, but since I'm on the topic, I mean, the Red Bulls' second goal, so pretty much the Red Bulls break and they counter, and they end up eventually kind of having a 3-on-2.
Mm-hmm.
There's a moment where I think it might have been off of a corner that we had, and then they counter. But Forbes ends up being one of the last defenders, and Biasi has a chance to maybe take the yellow and kind of take him out at the Red Bulls player out at the halfway line. And I'm just thinking, like, in that moment, like, I don't know, I almost hate talking about it because I usually don't want to talk about the darker arts of this stuff, but like, you got to take the yellow card in that.
You've got to take the yellow. I mean, didn't he try to though, but completely flubbed it because he's on the ground right afterwards?
I feel like he just tried to like lean into it. Like I'm literally talking like fair. Reach out, grab his shoe, and like pull him back.
Yeah. You take the red at that point, right?
Oh, I don't even think it would be a red. Like I think
no, but
okay,
if you grab your shoe,
I mean, maybe that's why he doesn't do it, because you're right. I mean, it is, you can get a little too obvious in that scenario, but
I think your point is right? Like, we scored our first goal because they switched off. They scored both of their goals because we switched off. I mean, even their first goal, I mean, it wasn't like, it's not like they found a ton of space.
Yeah.
Our defenders were not paying attention.
Yeah.
We had two defenders in the box to guard two guys. One steps towards the ball, one steps towards the guy that's moving towards the goal line, and then the guy that scored it is right there wide open for the pass. Like, where's everybody else, right? Like, again, where are our midfielders coming in for defensive solidity? Like, that wasn't a fast play where it was like all of a sudden we got beat to the other side of the field. Like, we had time. We just weren't paying attention.
Let's talk about, well, I don't know. I mean, so going back to the midfielders, I don't know. Do you think I'll start off the unpopular opinion that I think for everything that Kenny has done throughout his entire career, and everything that Kenny has done at our club, he's been, I would say, quiet in recent games. Can't really remember the last time he scored a significant goal. I can't really remember. I don't think he assists anything in this game.
He assisted the corner.
Okay, sure, yeah.
Which, like to be fair, I have complained all season that he should not be taking corner kicks, because he puts it low at the edge of the 6-yard box every single time. This one was just a little higher. But if you go back and you watch the goal to see where Mikel moves to, I mean, he is out to the 6-yard box to get to that ball.
Right.
And maybe that's him adjusting and realizing, like, this ball is not coming to where I want it. I have to.
Right.
Right. Like, I don't know. But like that, like, this is the guy that's taking our corner kicks. Like, yeah, all respect to what Kenny has done.
Yeah.
But at this point, Bob's got to man up and say, hey, I love you, man, but
I just feel like his overall performance. Yeah.
Let the role do this. And you don't like this is where you are now as an older player.
Yeah.
And be realistic about that than expecting 2018 Kenny Forbes, 2020 Kenny Forbes, right? Like, he's not that player anymore. That doesn't mean he doesn't have a place on this team. It doesn't mean he's not good for this team, but he should not be the guy that we're depending on in all of those situations.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think I still hold the opinion that he is one of the only players that like he can do things on the field that other players can't do. Like he has the vision and he has the
Mhm.
passing technique to execute on things that no one else on the field can do
Mhm.
or should even be attempting. It's just when that's your kind of main, I don't know, value added,
Mhm.
you need to do it like every once in a while, like in a fairly regular,
Mhm.
consistent basis. And I just feel like in the past couple games, I mean, okay, yeah, corner excluded. Kenny can in a midfield that demands a lot of intensity, I
And I
think.
think that's a big part of it. That if we've got a stronger presence in midfield, he's got a lot more freedom to not have to be one of those guys that's pressing and having that full responsibility, right? Like, I mean, what? He's 34, 36?
I have no idea.
I don't know. I think he's older than you are. Imagine doing that every weekend. Like,
No. I'm trying to quickly look up another player's age.
I'm just making that guess because I know you're the young one.
Yes, yeah. He is older than I am.
All
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
So like, do your legs feel like they could do that week in and week out and keep up with those 23-year-old guys that just have boundless energy? No.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, and I just don't know. Like, I can see him. I don't know. This feels like an end of the season chat, but I can see like thinking about how to kind of like situate him in. I can see him in like the deep lying playmaker role where he like never crosses the halfway line, and his job is to essentially, when we're in possession, kind of take it off Ordonez's feet and kind of be the quarterback. Or I can see him just saying like, look, just stand next to like Kelly or Dequa or Cicerone and just be the 10 that like is the like extra player that like you don't have to defend, you don't have to. But yeah, I don't really want him right in the middle of the action.
He's not a box to box midfielder anymore.
Yeah.
And that's like, it's not because he's doing anything wrong.
Yeah.
He's not a 20-something-year-old player anymore.
Yeah. I want to, just because I need to talk about it, I took a note of it. Going back to our first goal, Dixon's touch was just, it was like the greatest thing that I've seen all season. So Ordonez, like you said, puts the big diagonal, the ball high in the air, hanging there. Dixon is right on the touch line or like right on the sideline, has no room. The Red Bulls player is coming down, closing up, and he just has the perfect first touch to control it, keep it on the ground, and put it out like 6 feet ahead of him.
Yep.
And from first touch, his next touch is his cross.
Yep.
And it was a great cross. Cicerone, great vision, great technique to like crank his neck back and laid it for Mertz. And even at that, Mertz still had a lot to do, right? He had a Red Bulls player on him, and he ends up volleying it with, I don't even know if Mertz has a weaker foot, but it was his left foot.
His left foot, yeah.
Yeah, and it was a great finish. Yeah, I mean, that goal was just, it was just like one of the best. Yeah, one of the best goals I can think of that we scored.
Yeah. No, I mean, that was a top tier. I mean, I'll be surprised to see a better goal from the Hounds all season.
Yeah.
So, tangentially related. One of the things about not being on the podcast all the time and doing behind the scenes stuff and like subbing in is I actually, like, if I am not part of it, I actually get to listen to you guys, which is a lot of fun. Because I get to like sit there and have the inner dialogue and disagree or agree. And then like oftentimes, I mean, you see it, like I'll just like chime in as I'm listening. Or Ellen does the same thing in our Slack and just like argue with what you've already said, like disagree with you guys or agree with you guys. And I think it was last week, maybe the week before, I think when Mike asked the question from the Mon Minute about who you would take from this team if you were starting a new team.
Yeah.
And I think when it came to build a team around someone, you said Dixon, if I recall. And I was stunned that nobody else said that, and nobody else said it for the other, like whatever Mike said for like who's the guy that
I think he said Griffin or something.
Yeah, I like Danny is great. Like there's no world for me where Alex Dixon is not by far and away the best player on this team. Like, he's just spectacular. And I think we saw that. I mean, when he got hurt,
Yeah.
we went out to Detroit. Like, it was a major presence that was missed when we went to Detroit.
And
yeah,
and I think
really
he was out. I think he was out during those 6 games or some of the 6
well,
games.
His son was born.
Right. Yeah, and
like I think his wife was due right around the Charleston game, so he didn't travel because of that.
right.
And then the baby was born, so he was off the next week, and then he was like only in for 30 minutes the week after that or something like that. Like,
I think it showed.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna do our own show, Steve. We should agree with each other. I knew I liked you. Before we get into the Mon minutes, let's have a conversation around. You already mentioned it briefly around the rotation in the starting 11. So Kelly comes in for Dequa. Biasi comes in for I forget who, to be honest. And what
Dos Santos?
That's what I would be my guess.
Right.
Which Dos Santos doesn't even make the bench.
Yeah.
This one, and Williams, I'm not sure. Him and Peters have been kind of switching on and off.
You know, every time I think Bob has settled on one of those two Trinidadian center backs, he switches it, and then he goes with the other guy for like 3 games. And I'm like, oh, okay, so and then he switches back to Peters, and then he goes back to Williams. Like it is every time I think I figured it out.
Yeah,
and I don't know.
Yeah, I'm the same. I think they both have their strong points. I mean, Williams gets a goal, probably should have had a second. But and then the last one with Silva. No, I assume Jamali Waite wasn't hurt because Jamali Waite was on the bench. Switching from Jamali Waite to Silva, I don't really get. I mean, I don't think he didn't do anything drastically wrong for the goals that the Red Bull scored. I'll say he probably could have done better on the second one. You can be a little. I would say you can be a little critical against Silva on the Red Bull's second goal, but then after it goes 2-2 and the game just turns into a mess. Like Mertz should score and Williams should score, and then the Red Bulls should really score after Silva comes out and just kind of misses something. I don't know. What are your thoughts on the overall kind of rotation, if anyone particularly came in and did well or did poorly?
Luke seems like a really nice guy. I don't understand his place over other players that could have rotated in.
When you say Luke, Biasi?
Biasi, yeah.
Yeah.
Nice guy. I've had a couple conversations with him. Like, really nice guy. But my take is the staff looking at this game as an easy win and choosing to let guys play that otherwise weren't playing. Because why Biasi over Toby Sims, right? Like, I mean, where have Argudo and Angelo Kelly gone, right? Like, those are guys we haven't seen either. So is it just that he's trying to give these young guys a chance to give them time against teams that he thinks we're going to beat?
Right.
Which that's got to be my guess. Give some guys a little bit of rest in the case of Kelly in place of Dequa. So I don't know. I think with Silva, I think again, that's just like give a little bit of a change, give him some more time. And is that like a little fear of, hey, if something happens to Waite, we want Silva to have played some games recently and he hasn't.
But yeah, I agree. I mean,
right? Those are the things that I'm thinking about because I don't see a good reason to not put stronger players in. And why why change out your keeper in a game like this? Like, Waite has been good and he's building good chemistry with the back line. And so that's where I think a lot of some of the issues stem from the most is all of a sudden you're throwing Silva into a game against an energetic team, if nothing else, right?
Yeah.
And he doesn't have that same synergy with the back line that Jamali has at this point. So I don't like it. Like, I don't, if that's what you're asking me, I don't like the rotation. If it's rotation for rotation's sake, I don't like it.
That's what, and I was going to say, I don't think I'm putting words in your mouth by saying, from what you were talking about and kind of how I feel too, it did feel like it was kind of just rotation for rotation's sake. I didn't really see any obvious reason to do this. Short of, now I think, I always, in the back of my mind, it's possible that Bob is just really like runs a meritocracy, and if you have a good training week, then you have a chance to get in. But I also feel like that's there's enough evidence in my head where, like, the rotation, the moments when players had a good week in training and then get their chance out of the blue always seem to come against teams that are in like the bottom half of the table. So I don't really think that's it. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if Jamali Waite saves the Red Bull second goal. I don't know if him being in there creates a better cohesion for the back line. It probably does. But I don't know if that translates into a materially like different score line. I agree with your call on the Biasi thing. Kelly, I can't put my finger because he's still good. But I mean, in this game, I think he was overshadowed by Cicerone, and on some level, Mertz, who isn't playing really in his position. Arguably, you can say Cicerone is more alongside Kelly, but yeah, I mean, it just so I don't really get it either.
So I think the only other thing I'll say is I feel like the next time you and I do a podcast together where it's just the two of us, it's going to be 2 years from now. Somebody, like, we're going to be sitting there and be like, man, yeah, wasn't Luke just like the best player the other night? And like somebody's going to be like, hey, do you remember what you guys said a couple of years ago with why is he even on this team? Like, he's that player, I think, in Bob's mind that eventually he's going to be the guy that like is like he's going to be the next Danny Griffin or something like that, right? Like, we're going to be singing his praises in a few years after we've like wondered for 2 seasons why he's on the roster.
I hope so, and I hope whoever that person who listens to this is who calls us out for that, you're like the greatest fan of the podcast ever, because that's some deep research there. Like, hey, I watched that one episode where Kevin hosted and Steve was there. Okay, let's move on to some of the Mon Minute questions. Let's first. Well, no, I'm not even going to set it up. Let's go to the first one.
My name is Matthew, and I would like to hear why people think the Riverhounds have been drawing so well recently. They've been almost selling out every game, despite the team being somewhat inconsistent in their home performances. So what's bringing the crowds out?
Yeah, guys, why are we here? Let me know.
So that was Matthew. Thank you, Matthew. At first listen, you said drawing so well, and I was like, oh, okay, we draw the game. I guess we did draw pretty well, but yeah, no. Talking about the attendance, why do you think we've been getting so many fans in the stadium, Steve?
I have no idea. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, so I'll say, like, I don't know, because my life consists of like work, being outdoors, spending time with my dog, like working on my house. If I'm doing something with media, it is definitively not media where commercials are getting through to me. Right. It is Hulu with house-wide ad blocking. It is Spotify that I pay for, right? Like right. I'm not listening to the radio. I am not watching local TV. I don't even drive to work much anymore. So like, I don't think there are billboards, right? But like, is there good advertising? Like, okay, so I have a Twitter account and I tweet from it, and all I tweet from it is like 2 or 3 Hounds related things. And then like, I like maybe 1 or 2 of Josh's tweets a week. And that's my engagement on Twitter, maybe 10 minutes a week, right? Outside of Hounds games. So I have no idea. Like, they're doing something. I don't know what it is, but it's working.
Let me ask you this. How often do you participate in like the Steel Army tailgates before the game?
I try to get down there as often as I can. Coming from a half hour away, oftentimes having friends coming and using my extra ticket, that kind of delays me getting down there sometimes. So I'd say like every other I'm down there for like at 5 o'clock.
And you sit in the Steel Army, right?
Yeah, I sit a little. I mean, I sit above. So
But so
beer when we do score a goal.
I was just gonna say, like, I don't know.
It's packed.
I was gonna like. I think maybe people genuinely having fun over the long term compounds on itself.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And I think there's always been a sense, I mean, from afar down here in Tennessee, hearing, talking to you all and catching the vibe from the conversations had on here and in Slack and in Twitter and everything. It just seems like like when you have a strong, good community of people that like care about each other and like have fun together. I think over time that just kind of compounds on itself. Now, I mean, that potentially speaks to the Steel Army. Now, having a strong supporter section, I think, adds to the overall atmosphere of everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think it helps. Like every time I watch it on TV, it's just a gorgeous stadium to look, especially when you contrast it with like the baseball diamonds that we play on sometimes.
Yeah.
And so to see the stands and you see the city, you're right off the river. I mean, it just looks like a good time. I mean, I remember growing up in Pittsburgh, and the joke would be in high school, like, oh, I want to read a book today. It's nice. Like, let me go to like see a Pirates game because I'll just sit in the stands and read a book. Like that was like that tickets are so cheap.
Hot dogs elsewhere.
Yeah, I was like, tickets are so cheap, and you just sit there, and it's just a nice view. And like I'm not saying people are doing that because people look very engaged. People are wearing jerseys, like all over the stadium, and so, but I think all of that contributes. So no, Matthew, I don't think either of us have the answer to it, other than it's when people have good times, kind of compounds on itself. And now that's not to understate all the work that the Hounds are doing at the front office and all of that. I mean, and to set it up later this week, Wednesday, I'm trying to pull it up. Yeah, Wednesday, special live show, 7 p.m. With the Riverhounds' new president, Jeff Garner. So maybe we can, get his insights on why so many people are coming and staying to home Hounds games. Let's get on to the next question.
Question is expected goals a bullshit stat?
That's Dannison. You can blame him.
Thank you, Dannison. Is expected goals a bullshit stat? Steve, I'm going to keep starting with you, Orelli, so it gives me more time to think about it.
No, but that's my answer. Okay.
Yeah.
No, it's not. It's not a bullshit stat, but it is not a direct stat. It is. It's a measure of likelihood of scoring based on types of plays. I think you guys talked about this when John was on with you.
Yeah.
And so, sure, like I think it feels that way when you're looking at it. You're saying, "Oh, we should have scored 4 goals because that's what our X goals was." No, it just means that the probability of scoring 4 goals is high in those types of situations. But it's also not that direct, right? It's like it builds over time. So it's like on this particular play, it might contribute to the XG at like 0.25, right? So like a quarter of the time, like this is oversimplifying, but a quarter of the time, that's going to be a goal.
Right.
So 1 out of every 4 times. And so you add those together. So like, well, if you do that 4 times, then you should have scored a goal.
Right.
But that's still just a probability. And I think that's where it gets like kind of funky, because you're adding lots of little probabilities that are disconnected from each other together to try to get a measure of how many goals you probably should have scored in a specific game. And that's why it oftentimes, I mean, sometimes it matches really well. Sometimes it matches not at all. So I think if you're expecting it to tell you what the goal or what, like if you look at that without looking at the score line and expecting to use that to get a score line out of it, you're never going to get the right score line. I think that's the best way to kind of, but if you're looking at it to say, yeah, like, is this a team that can score goals? Then the answer is it is more indicative of that.
Right. I agree with everything you said. To maybe put it in a slightly different way. Yeah, the stat itself isn't bullshit. I think how people use it and have conversations around it can be bullshit. I think that the stat on its own, it's just it's another perspective of looking about how the events of a game played out.
Yeah.
But then I think the problem is people, because it's just a more widely available stat that's being generated and passed around in conversation circles, people take it and then have irresponsible isn't the right word, but irresponsible conversations around, using it. So
I'm just thinking how the only way we could get more academic about this is if Laura Ellen was here, because we've got you and then the assessment guy, Laura Ellen in, and then like all we're doing is having a statistical conversation.
We missed an opportunity. Speaking of, let's look at the XG. Wait, pulling up the XG chart.
Question.
Yeah, the XG chart for this game against the Red Bulls, 2-2. Mm-hmm. Our XG was 1.4. Red Bulls XG was 1.2. So, both of us outscored it. Once again, I say people have irresponsible conversations around XG. I feel like we probably contribute to that sometimes, but yeah, it's a fun graphic to look at. Before I take this down, do you have anything to add to this, Steve?
No.
Okay, cool. Let's get to the last on minute.
My name is Claire, and my question is, do you think any of our Pittsburgh teams will bring home a championship this year?
Yeah, this year, not 2.5 years, Kevin, who stole an answer from somebody else. This year. Let me know. Thanks, bye.
I think at this point, all I want to do is get on the Mon Minute indirectly. And so that's great. I've achieved my...
called you out. But you had the wherewithal to remember that at that point in the game.
Impressive. It's impressive work.
That's great. She was waiting for that. She might have goaded Claire into asking that question just to give you a hard time.
Thank you, Claire, for the question. We used to have the wrong people to talk about this question on this week's show.
You want to know what I learned?
What?
This week about Pittsburgh sports?
What did you learn?
Bob Lilly is a Pirates fan, and he wears his Hounds gear to Pirates games.
And apparently Josh, just knows it like the bat signal up in the air, and just goes to Pirates games too with his Hounds gear on. Yeah, that was a really cool image that I saw on Twitter being passed around. Yeah, Steve talking about on Twitter. Just go up and look at Josh's Twitter account. I guess he just ran into Lily at a Pirates game, and they took a photo. So that was cool. So that's helpul for the Pirates. Maybe like team camaraderie. Manager of the Hounds going
having somebody speedy.
yeah, probably.
You got good hands. Want to be a goalkeeper?
Yeah, he caught that ball. That was pretty good.
Going way off the rails. It
is going way off the rails. All I know is I don't watch any other Pittsburgh sports. I can't contribute to this at all. From a friend source, the Penguins aren't that good anymore. I don't think anyone's that good anymore. So hey, why not the Riverhounds? I mean, it's playoffs. It's not a super long playoffs. We're pretty good we can be good on our day. So I'll say the most likely team, I'll say the Riverhounds this year to pull a championship home for Pittsburgh.
Sure. Most likely, yeah.
Because we don't know any better.
so I never, ever followed hockey. Like, it was not a thing in my family growing up. Which is a shame, because growing up just outside of New York City in the Gretzky era would have been a lot of fun if we paid attention, but we didn't. Big, my dad's from the Bronx, big Yankees fans growing up. I tried to get into the Pirates when I moved here, and it just got so depressing in August that after 3 seasons of that, I stopped.
Yeah.
And then my thing was when I used to drive Uber and people would ask me about the Steelers, I would just say, didn't grow up here, didn't grow up a football fan, let's go Steelers, right? That's the right answer?
Right.
That's what I got. I got no idea.
Well, let's look. I can't, man. I don't even know. I just searched MLB. Well, nope. The Pirates, they've lost more than they've won this year, so it's probably not going to be the Pirates. Or I don't even or season 20. Yeah, I'm going to stop talking about this. Let's
Hey, I like the AL East standings. I haven't mentioned at all in years.
I can't contribute to this anymore. And as a host, I'm just going to move this along. Wrapping up before we talk about our next string of games, let's look at the table here in the Eastern Conference standings. Louisville won this past week. Again, Memphis and Tampa did lose. However, Birmingham won, further kind of separating the space between us and Birmingham now to 3 points. We still have a game in hand. But yeah, Birmingham won last week, giving us a little more separation. Yeah, I don't know, Steve, any commentary on how the current standings of the Eastern Conference are shaking out?
What, we play Birmingham once more?
Yeah, we played Birmingham once more.
Yeah. And that's it for the – oh, no, we play Louisville once more. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's it for the top 7.
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously those are must-win games if we want to move up the table. I'm not saying we're going to win them. I think you guys had the discussion last week about are we going to get 12 points out of these next 4 games? And, well, we didn't get 12 points. But I was of the opinion that, yeah, we're going to get 12 points, not because I was sure we would get 12 points, but if we're going to be a contender, we have to have gotten 12 points out of these games, and we didn't. So I don't know what to think at this point. How can we? Are we just going to fold against a team that has a particularly good game or is a strong team? I don't know. So beating Birmingham is huge. Beating Louisville will be huge. And then I don't know how I feel about the last stretch of the season. 4 games against 4 West Coast teams.
Yeah.
The nice part about that is there are no 6-point swings. The sucky part about that is there are no 6-point swings.
Right.
So we can't go down by 6 points, but we also can't gain 6 points in any particular game. So I think it becomes a scenario of if we want to see the Hounds playing at home at all in the playoffs, we've gotta just focus. The team just has to focus on winning the game ahead of them on a week-by-week, day-by-day basis, and that's all they can do. If they get focused on the standings, then we're not gonna climb the table if we're not focused on just winning the next game.
Yeah. Yeah, and to kind of put some more context around that, yeah, as you said, we play Birmingham September 14th away at Birmingham. So we have Louisville at home, but then the very next game we travel away to Birmingham.
Mm-hmm.
I think the reason why that game or this draw was so significant this past week because, let's say us and Birmingham match each other until that Birmingham game, and let's say we beat Birmingham and kind of regain our game in hand against them. I'm fairly certain so then at that point we would be even on points with them and then even on games played. At that point, I think the tiebreaker is still goal difference, and Birmingham have a superior goal difference than us right now. So it's not like we have our destiny in our own hands as far as finishing top 4 anymore. Right. Before this weekend, we did, I think. Yes, no, we did. If we, beat Birmingham, and now even if we do that, then they're still ahead on goal difference. So,
yeah. No, we need to win our games, and we need a little help. The biggest help we can get is a clear winner in the remaining Rowdies Legion game.
Yeah. Yep. And speaking of, let's see. Talking about the next couple games here.
I could look over at my other screen and nobody would know.
Looking at these conversations here. So as a reminder, follow us at Mongols on Twitter, MONGOALS. Mongols Twitter put up a poll. So the next 4 games are against 3 MLS2 teams and the Charleston Battery. If we want to be considered as a top team in this league, are these games must wins? And 90% of the Twitter poll responders said yes. So 90% of people on Twitter think these next 4 games are must wins. And kind of wrapping up the Twitter polls, the last poll that we'll talk about here is after last night's draw, the night after for the Red Bulls game, what's more important to you? And the questions were a home playoff game or a deep playoff run, and 83% of you said a deep playoff run. Yeah, I mean, so the next 4 games really important. Are they or aren't they must wins? Deep playoff runs versus a home playoff. I don't know, Steve. Do you have any thoughts on either of those?
I mean, I think that first one, that was before the game on Saturday.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, I think the obvious answer is yes. Now we've got that result. That's 2 games against bottom of the table team out of 3 possible games against bottom of the table team, because Red Bulls were bottom of the table last time we played them in New York or New Jersey. Let's be clear, they don't actually play in New York. So we've played the bottom of the table team 3 times, possible 9 points, and we've gotten 4 points out of those games.
Yeah,
top team doesn't do that.
Yeah,
like that's what I gotta say. Like that's not what top teams do. So you tell me. Like,
yeah, I don't know. I think while I think given the evidence that we have and given how the season has gone, I think it's going to be hard given the remaining games as well. If we get a draw out of the Birmingham game, I think no matter how else the season kind of plays out, I don't really see us getting back in the top 4 at this point, given how we're playing. You make a good point. I mean, we should be playing better. Let me rephrase this. I think for 98% of the game, we played pretty well against the Red Bulls. But
I don't know that I agree.
I don't want to get back into the Red Bulls conversation.
Yeah, that's fair.
I'm just going to have that. I'll have that. I think we played fine against the Red Bulls. And then we had lapses of concentration, which are important and hurt us. But the good thing is, I think the experience that's still left in this team, the somewhat togetherness that this team has. I mean, out of all the players that we've returned from last season, when it kind of ended so abruptly and dishearteningly from a COVID scare in the playoffs, and with the coach and Bob Lilly, there's still kind of magic in there that on any given night when the lights are on, something special can happen. So I think getting us in the playoffs and having us give a run, it's never a 0% probability of moving forward. So anything can happen in the playoffs. I think we'll still be dangerous in the playoffs, but yeah, I'm kind of foregoing the home playoff dreams at this point.
Yeah. So I think to give a more serious reflection, I think the reality is, right? Like, does it matter at all what we do against any of these teams if we end up making a deep playoff run? Right? Like, whether that's at home, whether that's on the road, like that's where I think the reality is, right? Like, I mean, it's different than when we watch EPL, where every single point matters at the end of the season for where you are in the table.
Yeah.
And where you are on the table in the USL matters for who you get drawn against. And sure, not playing home playoff games early means we're playing against teams above us in the table. If we go out and we beat those teams, we're going to be thrilled. We're going to be like, this is a great team, right? Like this is what a top team does. Even through adversity, they come back and they find a way to win, right? Like, so that's where I guess the proof is, right? Like So wait and see, I guess, is my real answer. I think the other thing that I thought about as you were talking, I like Birmingham has lurched to the top of my hated teams, and it is because of that not being able to play them in the playoffs, right? Like
Yeah.
it is nothing that they have done, right? Like, in fact, like I don't feel like there's been anything specific about Birmingham on the field that I've been negative about throughout the years. It's just that is just like there's a deep dislike for the fact that they advanced without us being able to be in the game.
Yeah. Well, we have a chance to write that in mid-September.
Smash them again. 7-0 playoff environment.
That was tasty. I do. Yeah, that was wonderful. Next up, the Hounds face Atlanta on Saturday at 7:30. The last time we played them in April, we won 4-0. They are currently in second to last place and have officially been eliminated from playoff contention. They have 4 wins, 19 losses, and 4 draws. They don't have Robbie anymore. He's on our side. Yeah. So, I don't want to, I don't know. If you have thoughts on this Atlanta game, let's get into them. But as a host, I am not in the market of predicting games that I know little about. So
I didn't care to pay attention to them before.
Yeah. Who does? Who wants to pay attention to a 2 team? No
right?
one does.
Like,
yeah. They're bad. That's all we need to know.
I think their goal on the weekend I think it was their goal was the one that was competing against Robbie and others for goal of the week. If you haven't, go vote for Robbie's goal for goal of the week on Twitter.
How do people do that, Steve?
Go find the Mongols Pod Twitter account at Mongols because we've tweeted it and said go vote. So that's the easiest way to do it. USL always does it. The team puts it out when it's there. Every once in a while I might, but I'm not reliable, so don't count on me.
You gotta talk yourself up more, Steve. Personal plug. We gotta, yeah.
My Twitter engagement is when I'm bored. I haven't been bored lately.
So we think we're going to smash Atlanta. Why wouldn't we? They're a 2 team, and we did so well the last time we played a 2 team.
Didn't we say that last week?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's kind of my point. So, but I kind of wrapping up the core content of the pod here. It is an important stretch of games here, if nothing more. To, I don't think either of us are. I mean, no, we haven't statistically made the playoffs. Of course, we haven't. I don't think either of us are worried about this team not making the playoffs.
No.
On some level, there is arguments for sure you want to finish as high as you can. Potentially, the more important thing at this point is just finishing the season as strong as you can. So even if that's getting hot in the last 3 games, that's great. And at this point, maybe we can kind of take the pressure off a little bit of finishing in the top 4. Probably not. People are probably sitting there screaming, listening to this. Like, we're only 3 points behind Birmingham when we play them.
Right.
The general mood has been kind of negative on this podcast, so I'm not in the mindset that it.
We can be playing a home playoff game. Like, that's well within reach. It's just not solely within our reach.
Yeah.
But I think the difference is, like, we're just as many points away from 3rd place as we are 7th place, right? Like, we could end up anywhere. But if you're going to tell me that we're going to have a team that is 13 points behind us overcome us, no, like, that's not going to happen, right? Like, we'll be in the playoffs. It's who we play and where we play that the big questions are. Because Tulsa is way down there.
Yeah. No, well, let's see how the season shakes out. On Wednesday, as I mentioned before, we have a special live show at 7 p.m. with the River Hounds' new president, Jeff Gardner. I think we've put out, like, hey, if you have any questions, like, let us know. I think there's still time. If you have any questions, let us know. And we'll have a nice chat and see what's going down with that.
Really nice guy. I know Josh talked to him a little bit. I got to introduce myself to him at the end of last weekend, and say hi. He said he just seems real excited to be here. He said he was looking forward to coming on the podcast. So, yeah, should be a good chat for whoever's there.
Yeah.
Is Mike who's interviewing?
I think Mike is leading it for big
Okay,
interviews.
Josh is the one that's on vacation. That's right.
Yeah.
Mike is just gone tonight. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. You don't want me leading that one. But, speaking of wrapping this up, Steve, I think, we've 55 minutes. The two of us, I think we did a bang up job. I think we did.
Bang up job for sure.
We should do it again anytime, Steve. Let's
this again.
I know. Wrapping up, we are proudly part of the Beautiful Game Network, which is home to more than 100 volunteer writers and podcasters covering local soccer. Help us all keep doing what we're doing. Head over to bgm.fm and click on the donate button to help us cover our expenses. Thank you for your support. Weekly reminder that Black Lives Matter. And thank you. I get to say Michael's line. Thank you, everyone. We'll talk to you very, very soon.
See you later. It's not the same without multiple people chiming in.
I think that's great.
Good.